Hey everyone, we're back for another tutorial, and this time we're going to cover how to do a web nav in Pixlr. So I've got some examples in Google Images that we're going to explore, collect some ideas, save some pictures, and then start to build a nav in Pixlr. And what do I mean by a nav? Well, I mean the buttons that you click on in a website or an app, anything that's functional, clickable on any piece of software. So a website is a bit of a piece of software. It has to be programmed and coded. And I'm going to show you how to customize the buttons, change the colors, what's idle state when the button's not doing anything, what's an over state when you hover the mouse over it, and then what is the hit state once you clicked it. So we'll be making a few buttons, a few custom things for that. So I hope you enjoy this. And as you see on screen, we've got beautiful examples. There's so many great designers out there that make their work available to us. We can get ideas. So as I click on ideas in Google, all I did was search navigation bar. And you can do the same. You can search navigation bar. This one caught my eye just because I really like the thin outline on the outside of the nav bar. The color of the stroke on the outside unifies with the color inside the text. Really well done. Even has the contrast in text, like really well done. These are awesome too, and they have glows. They really emphasize that you're about to click on that button. So check it out. Tons of examples. There's some simpler ones that look good with glows and shadows. And then there's more complex stuff, especially if you start looking at buttons on apps. Take screenshots, collect ideas, collect images. Excuse me. And if you do like something, let's say I like this image, you can save it by right-clicking, save the image as, and then collect it in a folder in your Google Drive and refer to it. I'm not saying copy it, but I'm saying look at the colors, look at the layout, find ideas, and to help develop your own nav bar in your website. So let's see what this entails. So I've gone ahead and started to make a Pixlr file, which looks like this one, the one that I'm shaking up and down. So I have a home, portfolio, about us, and contact. So I'm going to show you step by step how to build this. And then even when you hover over the home button, so home over would look like that. So it would look like a bit of a glow. And then when you hit, it would have a little bit of a glow in the background with the yellow, kind of a golden effect to it. And then when you come back off of it, it would go back to idle. So we'll save out multiple images. It'll take a little while to do this, but we can get it done. And it all starts with boxes and text. This is also another example in W3 schools. There are many ways to making a nav bar. The way I'm showing you is how to save custom graphics to apply to a nav. But here, this is a dynamic way of doing it. You can look into the code and be able to make a nav like what you see here according to colors and hex codes. And that's how they do it here. So it's cool to check out different ways to make navs. But if you want to go over the top, you're a graphic designer, you want to work with your programming and coding friends, and always push the limit, always push those coders to try new things and to work together. So this is how I'd approach it with some free software in Pixlr. Okay, so in Pixlr, I'll leave this up as just an example that I can refer to and recreate it with you. So if you're here with me, open up Pixlr and make a new image. Okay, so file, new image, and let's call this nav bar. Nav bar. The width, we will make it 1536, just because that's the max width of our Chromebooks that we're using. And the height, well, let's just stick with 50 pixels. So 50 pixels. You could check off transparent if you want the backgrounds to be transparent. For this purpose, I'm going to leave it blank. So, okay. I've got a white nav bar, empty. Okay. Now, I'm dragging around this layers panel here, but on your window, it would generally be tucked in the corner like that. I like to move it over, expand it open, because as we build more and more layers, we need that. So I'll do one of the buttons as an example, and then it'll provide enough information to do the rest. So here, I'm going to just click on my paint bucket tool. And I've got the same gray I used earlier. So I'm going to fill it with gray. And that's the same gray as the example above. But you see I have a bit of a drop shadow in the background. And so I'm going to apply that effect in the background layer, which I just filled. I'm going to click Layer Style and click on Drop Shadow. Okay. The drop shadow should apply. I could play with the size, the distance. It may not apply because I've got a locked background. Excuse me. Double click, unlock it. Not the drop shadow. I'm going to do an inner shadow. So there's the inner shadow, and that's too dark. I'm going to lower the opacity just to give it a kind of an indented look. So click OK. That's cool, but I want some text. I need to write home, right? So we're going to have home, portfolio, about us, and contact. Or other objects, other elements in our website could be added. You could do test 1, test 2, test 3 if you'd like. Here, we'll stick to this example. Use your type tool and click in the window, click in your pasteboard and type in home. You could do it all caps, you could do it all lowercase, and often what happens is your text won't look like it's coming up because it's the same color as the background that you just chose. So click on the color, and here I will go with a lighter gray, like so. So now I've got home in light gray. I'm going to move it over here. And I need to make a box around it. So I'm going to use my marquee tool. Before I do anything though, make a new layer. Okay, so new layer. Drag it below the home text. Okay, and name this home idle bar. Okay, home idle bar. I'll even zoom into it just so you can type it in, because it's going to be very important that we name all of our files. So I've got home idle bar. After that, I'm going to have home over and home hit. So there's all those different actions that I need to save for. So I'm going to start naming it like that. Home idle bar. Use the marquee tool. And I like to zoom out, Control minus, click. Oh, and I've still got my oval selection. So I'm going to hit Control D to get rid of that. Make sure that my rectangular marquee is selected. I'll zoom in to show you what I'm talking about. So the marquee versus the elliptical marquee. So click on that. I did zoom out so that way I can go to the outside of the pasteboard, make a custom box for home. And I'm going to fill this with black at this point. I'm going to go find black, click OK, use my paint bucket tool, fill it with black. Hit Control D to deselect. So I've got home with a black box behind it. Now, with that black box behind it, I'm going to add a layer style. And it looks good when you do a bevel and emboss. So I'll do a bevel effect here. And I'm going to adjust. You can do inner, outer, full, play around with these values. Play with the size. You can play with how much it blurs. Be careful. If you do too much, it doesn't look good either. So I could go really soft like that. I can even play with the values here instead manually. So 5. And the distance, I'll try 2. Okay. Opacity is at 100. I could mess around with these for a while. So I'm going to click OK. That's good. And now I've got a bit of a bevel look to it. The previous one I did was more minute, not as much of a blur. This one will be a little different. That's fine. Now, next thing, okay? What happens when we go over the button? Or maybe I want a little bit of a gloss look to the button. So I can make a gloss by making another layer. I'm just going to call this gloss. Gloss, gloss. I'm going to use my marquee tool, but this time we'll use the oval, the elliptical marquee. So again, in a new layer, make an oval. I'm going to fill it with white. Okay. So fill it with white. Fill that with white. Control D to deselect it. I'm going to use my move tool to bring it down. I hold shift to bring it down in increments of 10, and then the arrow key just to move it around. I'm going to give it a slight blur by going filter, Gaussian blur. And again, not too much because it'll pixelate. I'll go about 35, maybe a little less, 21. You can pick out what looks best for you. And then the opacity, you can get it by clicking on toggle layer settings. I'm going to lower the opacity. Okay. It's barely visible. So you get an effect of a bit of a gloss, a bit of a, like as if there was a plastic film on top of that button. And I like to add texture to buttons and make it look like you could touch it. You could physically feel that or move it or grab it. It just gives it more depth. So if you can add texture to your buttons or drop shadows, bevels, it does make it stand out and people want to click on it, which is what we'd like to do. So home, great. So we're on to something. We almost have a full button here. And now what happens if I want to go over it? Is the color going to change? Is there going to be a glow? Well, yeah, let's do that. It's not that hard to add. So home, I'm going to right click on it, duplicate the layer. Okay, and it just duplicates the same text over it. So now I'm going to call this home over. Home over. Okay. And in home over, we're going to add a glow. And I'm just going to click this little check mark to make the home text below it like disappear. And this one visible above it. Now, home over is going to have a glow and it's going to change in color. I'm going to zoom in. I use the space bar to pan. And I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Control plus, hit the space bar to pan. There it is, nice and big. So home over, and I'm going to add a layer style to it. We'll do an outer glow. It already has a little bit of a blue glow, but I'm going to change that to, I'll go with the same idea, kind of that golden color. Because that, in fact, that is our SRSS colors. gold and orange and yellows and black. So we'll do kind of a nice light orangey yellow. Click OK. And let's increase the size. Hardness, you can play with what that looks like. If you want to see it at 100%, just zoom out. Although it's not going to let me zoom out because I have to click OK first. So hardness, that's good. Click OK. It may be too much. I'll zoom out. Let me click back in here. Control minus, zoom out, zoom out. That's back to 100% there. That glow is a bit too much. I can go and edit it by double clicking on this thumbnail. Outer glow, size, I'll bring it down. Okay, opacity, I'll bring it down again, just so it's not as bright and you see the lettering of home. So just a slight glow. Click OK. So that would be my home over. Like when I drag the mouse over, it would do that. So this is what it would do. As I hover over it with the cursor, it would go like that to like that. So then it shows you that's the over state. The click state, well, we're going to change the color of the box behind it. So then we'll duplicate this box that we made earlier, the home idle bar. Duplicate that by right-clicking on it. Double-click, edit the name. So now this is going to be called hit idle, or sorry, home hit bar. You could change the names if you want, but I use idle, over, and hit. Those are the three different states there. And make sure we organize this to be above that one. If I control click on the thumbnail here, I'm going to zoom in. Make sure to control click on this little area. Control click. It will select that whatever's in that layer. Okay? That's a nice little trick to select whatever content is in the layer. Then I can go to my paint bucket. I'm going to use orange again, and I'm going to just fill that with orange. Control D to deselect. And that one, I'm going to lower the opacity. So it just looks like it turned a little bit yellowy, orangey, kind of golden color. Even I could change the text to bright white, which I might just do. So home over. In fact, I'm going to click on home over. Click on my text tool. Click on the home text and change that color to bright white. There we go, much better. So when we go over the button, it's going to be bright white with a little bit of a glow. And then when we click on it, it'll turn kind of golden color. And so there's our first button. That's how you make a navigation button with all of the different states, and you can save them all out individually. So we can crop our canvas using the crop tool, like so. Hit enter, and we have an individual button here. So now I could save each state individually. So I'll do an example. And I want the idle state. So it takes a bit of thought, okay? So that's my idle state with nothing being done. I would save that, go File, Save. Save it as a JPEG. I will save it. Click OK. I'm going to throw that on my desktop and organize it later. So desktop, nav bar. So I'll just call this very important. Home BTN for button idle. Home button idle. Save. Okay. Then I'm going to have home over. So I'm going to save it again. File. So notice how we have the glow now. Save it as a JPEG. Home button over. Click save. And then home button hit. File, save. So I'm going to call this home button hit. And again, desktop, save. So I should have 3 files on my desktop. Home button idle, which is there, great. Home button over, it's got a slight glow to it. And home button hit. And that's what you could provide to any programmer, coder, and they can swap out the images as the cursor would go into those coordinates or that area of the website. So those are techniques that I've used in the past. There are other ways of making nav bars, but this is a cool way to customize your own buttons and start to build an entire nav. So have fun with it, make custom navigation bars, take your time, pay attention to the detail, and don't be afraid to share what you've done or give me some feedback on this video. Okay, thank you, take care, and we'll see you next time.